Faye from New Zealand, she realised that my newsletters that have been sent out, they're on a different format, and that's because I've moved from MailChimp to ActiveCampaign. So that's one word, ActiveCampaign, ActiveCampaign. And she wanted to know why, because I always recommend MailChimp to people who start off with a database. You know, MailChimp is imperative in terms of managing your and nurturing your client base. So it could be that clients contact you for whatever reason, but they're not quite ready to buy from you yet. But with them going on MailChimp, you're nurturing that relationship by constantly giving them value, by constantly sending them information. So people who are on my therapist list, so I've got two lists. One is my end user clients, so people who come to HypnoFit for weight loss or for quit smoking or for whatever it is, and my other list is my therapist list. And they're the people that come to my workshops and do my training. Now, the people on my therapist list could just be people who are interested in what I have to say, but they haven't bought anything from me yet. And so I'm constantly giving them value, so that they understand that, well, if this is the value I give them for free, imagine what value I would give them if they paid for it. So that's what you need to do. You've got to make sure that you have a database. You've got to make sure that you capture those prospects when they contact you. You've got to make sure that if you're giving a talk anywhere, that you do have their email addresses so that you can nurture that relationship. So why have I moved from MailChimp, which is a fantastic system, to ActiveCampaign? Simply because of the workflows. So ActiveCampaign has got a better workflow system. What does that mean? That means, for instance, yesterday at my half-day workshop in Sydney, with every half-day workshop that I run, there's always a few people that don't turn up for whatever reason. I know 2 people were sick yesterday and they couldn't come up. So what ActiveCampaign does is it recognises who attended and who didn't attend through my Eventbrite organiser. So I've got an Eventbrite app on my phone, which I hand over to my crew at the beginning of each workshop. So everywhere I go, I'm so blessed and so lucky that people who have trained with me, they continue to come to my workshops and crew for me, and they volunteer their time. So yesterday, as an example, I had Michael Haber, who lives in Wollongong, and that's 2 hours out of Sydney, 2 hours out of Sydney, and he drove 2 hours to come and crew for me for free yesterday. And just like Nessa McGee and Belinda Hallmark did the same thing for my Queensland retreat on the weekend, I have people all over who have done my courses, and I'm so grateful for. I've got Julie Tashome and Rebecca Privilege in Perth. I've got Michael Haber and Nadine in Sydney. I've got heaps of people everywhere that just give me their time. And so I give them my phone. This is one of the things that my crew people do. And on my phone, there's an Eventbrite organiser, and they check people in. So he checks people in as they come in the door. And so with the people that have attended, as opposed to the people that have not attended, they get a separate email because they go into a separate workflow. So Faye from New Zealand, in terms of your question as to why have I moved to ActiveCampaign away from MailChimp, it's simply because I need to use these workflows. I need to make sure that I'm able to follow up with people that have attended my workshops. So if they haven't attended my workshop because they got sick on the day, they'll get an email that will tell them, hey, sorry you missed it, this is my next workshop on this date. So it's an automated workflow system, which when you're busy and you're traveling a lot, you need to do that. So that's the reason. I hope that's answered your question, Faye. If you don't need workflows, then MailChimp is a fantastic service to use. I've been using it for years, and it's only now that I've moved over to ActiveCampaign. So thoroughly recommend MailChimp for anybody who's starting out and needs a customer management system to manage their contacts. It is brilliant and very easy to use. I hope that's answered your question. All right. Next question comes from Sally Doran from the United States. So Sally did my St. Louis workshop, What's William saying here? Talk about St. Louis. What has he saying? William Mitchell said, I wish I could go to Las Vegas, college shows and class. I want to see you in Chicago at your keynote Mid-America conference. Yay! So what William's saying, William Mitchell is my role model, my mentor, the person that if I have a question about a dilemma, an ethical dilemma, or about what I should do about anything, I contact William, and I absolutely adore him, and he knows I treasure him. So he's the first person that brought me overseas to St. Louis, USA, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, and I have been speaking there, a number of years running at the massive and beautiful and amazing Heartland Hypnosis Conference in St. Louis, and he can't make it to Vegas. So I'm very sorry I'm going to miss you in Vegas, William, but I will see you in Chicago. So I'll be at the Mid-America Conference in Chicago, and I'm going to be the keynote speaker. I can't believe it. So I've been a keynote speaker before, which was at William's Heartland Hypnosis Conference in St. Louis, but I have not even been to the Mid-America Conference in Chicago, and I'm going to be the keynote speaker this year in Chicago in October. I can't wait. So that's exciting. If I just think about that, I get really super duper excited. So the second question comes from Sally. I keep getting distracted. And Sally came to my 2-day workshop, Expert Hypnotherapist Therapy System workshop in St. Louis, where I went through my system with her. And one of the things that I talk about is one of my favorite scripts. And one of my favorite scripts is The Fork in the Road. Like, as hypnotherapists, I think it's an absolute must in everyone's toolkit. So everybody needs to have this script in your toolkit, in your tool bag. It's one of those scripts where I really believe that it's a punch in the guts. So if somebody, this is the time that I use The Fork in the Road, either their final weight loss session, or their quit smoking session, or when somebody is during the course of their program feeling a little bit demotivated, a little bit not sure about where they're at, and they need a bit of a punch in the guts. This is what I call it, the punch in the guts. So The Fork in the Road is the punch in the guts. So this is what Sally said as her question to me, which I'm going to be answering now. So Sally's question is, concerning the script, The Fork in the Road, which I believe you said is good for the final session. As I was copying over my notes from your workshop, I was wondering, from your 2-day workshop, I was wondering, is there any danger in revisiting the mess on the left? William's saying he uses Fork in the Road for smoke cessation. So do I. It's a fabulous one to use for smoke cessation. So Sally's saying, is there any danger in revisiting the mess on the left that we have already cleared for them in previous sessions? That is to say, by revisiting the left, couldn't that put back into their thoughts all of the things we cleared up? I haven't tried it yet, but was wondering if there was anything in particular that we might do or say or not say or be careful about while using the script in a last session as we revisit all their old habits from their left that they should no longer have or want. So this is what I believe. This is what I believe, Sally. So what Sally's saying here is that she's scared about using the fork in the road because she's already cleared all that garbage, all those habits that clients have hung on to, and she doesn't want to bring it back into their subconscious mind. I believe that that neural pathway is there regardless, Sally. So I think that no matter what old habits we have, that neural pathway is there regardless. So for instance, I might have a new habit where I don't eat pizza very often, but then or if I do eat it, I'm only going to have 3 pieces maximum. Well, the other night when I was in Sydney and I was feeling very tired and very exhausted, I had a pizza which I ordered into my room and I had 5 pieces. That is very unlike me, very unlike me. So what I did was I tapped into an old neural pathway which still exists. And when I actually had those 5 pieces of pizza, I actually felt ill. So I felt sick. And that sick feeling reminded me that I never want to do that again. So essentially, that's what we're doing with A Fork on the Road, is we're reminding people of what it feels like to be on the left side, to go down the left path, which is the left path You know, it's easy to go down that path, but this is what that path looks like. And the way that I do it with the fork on the road is that I really talk about it with a lot of description in terms of what that left path is. I talk about the weather being cold and miserable and how the streets are dirty and the streets are littered with the kinds of things that your client is struggling with. So for instance, if they're struggling with drinking too much wine, then the streets are littered with empty bottles of wine. If it's McDonald's that they're eating, then the streets are littered with empty McDonald's wrappers. So whatever it is that they're struggling with, and then just litter the road with all that garbage. And the people that walk down that road, they are so miserable, they're overweight, they've got dark circles around their eyes. They can't even look at each other because they're so embarrassed with the way that they're feeling. And they're always visiting doctors and hospitals because they're always sick. So you're basically giving them an aversion by taking them down that left path. So to answer your question, Sally, I don't believe that it is a problem taking them down that left path. I think that even though you've reconnected them to the right way of doing things, and even though you've helped them get rid of their old habits, you're reinforcing the fact that they really don't want to go down that left path whatsoever. So I hope that's answered that question. There's 3 questions that Sally has given me for the fork on the road. The second question is, I was a bit unclear on the transition to the right. When you use the fork on the road script, do you bring the client out of trance for a quick check how they are feeling and then put them right back into trance to transition to go to the right path, or are they in trance for the entire time for both sides of the fork on the road? So this is what I do, which is a little bit different. So with the fork on the road, usually people take them to the left all the way down, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, back to the fork in the road, and then they take them to the right. So because this is a very long script, and I like to have fun when I'm seeing clients because I need to have my energy in the right place. What I do is when I bring them back, so I've taken them down the left path, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and I bring them back to the fork in the road, and this is what I say. So rather than saying on the count of 1 you will go down back to the right path, what I say is I'm going to count from 5 to 1, and when I say the number 1 you will open your eyes. So I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then what I do is Rick Collingwood's eye gaze. So for those of you who have studied with Rick Collingwood, you would know that one of the techniques that he uses is his eye gaze, which can be very scary. So what I do is I actually ask them to open their eyes on the count of 1. So after they've gone down the left side, bring them back to the fork, ask them to open their eyes and look into my eyes and tell me the first thought that comes in their head. And what they usually say is, I don't want to go down that path. And then I just say, sleep. And they drop down. So to answer your question, Sally, they're still in trance. So of course, just because I've got them to open their eyes for a second, we're just deepening them. We're not actually getting them out of trance. We're just deepening them by asking them to open their eyes. So I ask them to open their eyes in that middle point. What's the first thought in your head? And they say, I don't want to go down that path. And you say, sleep. And you say, that's right, you don't. And you don't have to. Because that hasn't happened yet. And then you take them onto the right path. And the right path, it's a little bit steeper. It takes a little bit more conscious effort to get there. But the sun is shining, the flowers are blooming. You can hear kids playing in the distance, people going for their jog and their bike ride, and they're so happy on that path. So even though it takes a little bit more effort to take that path, it's worth it because it's the high road to success. So that's the way that I do it. It's a bit of fun bringing them back from the left side, getting them to open their eyes, not getting them out of trance, just opening their eyes. So I often do that when I do deep trance work with my clients. I often get them to open their eyes and say something to them, give them the eye gaze, and then they're just mesmerized. So they look at you like this, and it just deepens them, and you just say sleep, and they're back down as quick as possible. So I love doing that. So I hope that's answered your question. I've got another question from Sally, which is, she says, I was just curious, when you bring them out of trance at the end from your experience, do you usually find out there is much to chat about, the differences, right versus left, or about their future, or does it all depend? I don't chat. So I just let the subconscious integrate everything. Exactly, William, fractionation, exactly what that is. It's fractionation. And William says, I do not use right or left due to the left-handed. I leave it open-ended. Okay, good one. All right, nice one. I don't chat about it at the end. I actually think there's no need to chat about it because the subconscious mind integrates all those learnings the way it needs to integrate. So I don't want to chat about it. So I don't actually chat about their experience on the left or the experience on the right. I don't think we need to. So yeah, to answer your question, I don't chat about it. We just leave it as it is and perhaps, you know, discuss what task they've got for the week ahead, and then the session is over. So Sally, I hope that's answered your question, and anybody else, if you have any questions, let me know right here, right now. Otherwise, I'm going to wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week ahead.